Hi, and welcome to a quick overview of Burr. And so, specifically, by the end of, you should have a rough idea of what Burr can do, some of its state observing kind of functionality, and how you can debug a particular point in time as you're writing your agent. To motivate some of this, right? If you're building agents, I'm sure you've come across one of these problems, right? Where an element call fails, maybe your code didn't handle a response, or some other logic failed in the middle of your agentic stuff, right? Or maybe things, the agent didn't fail, but it just went off the rails and failed to do things, right? And so the kind of response to that is generally monitoring or observability. But I want to say monitoring is generally, something that's adjacent to kind of your dev loop, your actual application, right? And so it doesn't actually help debug you all that quickly, right? So for example, it can tell you what, but then to get to that point to debug it, right, that's generally a bunch of work. If you could just, fix the code or inputs and then restart your agent, wouldn't that be great? And then more specifically, if your agent had some long running thing and then you fixed it, wouldn't it be great to not restart from zero or go to a specific point? Well, if you want that, right, then go try Burr. And so I'm going to spend a very couple of minutes to try to explain what Burr is, but otherwise this isn't going to be an exhaustive explanation. And also, Burr does have a sister framework called Hamilton. So if you're, data pipeline processing, doing anything more complex on the DAG, directed data cycle graph side, go look at Hamilton. So at a high level, what is Burr is that when you're building an agent application, you're modeling a state and actions that create a graph. Graph here being your computer science term. If you don't know what I mean by that, you can think of it as, circles and edges that create a flow chart. Is kind of the idea of how you write code, and that's what Burr kind of mimics and kind of uses to run the agent. In terms of the actual code that you write, well, you have to write functions that represent actions. There's an object-oriented API. I'm not going to show that here. At a high level, you're writing functions that take in state and output state. And that is the contract between all actions. That's how they're decoupled. So the only way that actions can communicate with each other is by reading and writing from a state object. Each action needs to declare what it depends on, and then you can do whatever you want in the middle of the function. LangChain, Llama index, Hamilton, your own custom logic. Burr doesn't matter. You could do LangChain in one function, Llama index in another. Burr doesn't care, right? And so the only contract is you just got to read and write to the state object. So you kind of create these actions, and then you got to build a graph from them or a flowchart. You have to specify what they are. So that's what this. You build a graph. You specify the actions. You can kind of name them, and then you got to specify the edges. So this specification is a thruple. So the source to destination action, and then there's a condition. The condition could be default, meaning it always happens, but otherwise, if not, this is a condition that will check the state to determine which edge or which action to take next. And so in the case of modality, right, we'll only go from decide mode to generate image when the mode is generate image, right? And so these conditions can get more complex. I'm not going to spend time on that here, but effectively, after all this, you can build a graph that will look something like this. So this is your Burr application. You can, take the prompt. It will take a prompt, pass it to decide mode action, and then use the right modality to create a response, and then loop back around as many times as we want. Right? That is, since this is the nature of this kind of agent. Then to actually build and actually run the application, we've got to take the graph and stick it into an application builder. This application builder has a bunch of other features that you can attach and introspect. The key point for note for this demo is that if we attach a local tracker, we can initialize from a previous state, but then we can also write to a new one or track or introspect that this application with a one-line addition. And so that's what this local tracker is doing. This is all running locally on your own file system. Nothing's being kind of sent across, in case you're wondering. So at the end of this, we have an application that we can now run. And so the only difference here in this visualization is we've actually just annotated the edges with the conditions that were provided. Now Burr. Now to kind of run this graph, we need to have some control flow to decide, how to run it, when to stop, and so this is what this cell is doing. We basically have a loop where we're going to ask the user for input. We're going to quit the loop if that's the response. Else we're going to run the application, and we're going to halt after response. So Burr allows you a very fine-grained way to kind of walk this graph. There is a halt before directive or a halt after, so you can halt before or after a particular kind of node. And so the graph will stop, and then you can pass in inputs or check the state, etc. And so if I go ahead and run that, I can type something in. So, what is the capital of France? And Burr will go ahead, run this, orchestrate this graph to kind of get a response. We can say, draw, write hello world in Java. And, Burr, given the right modality, will choose the right path. Now, I put an error in the code. I'm not sure if you saw it, but draw a pen. Oh no! Oh no! My app failed. Oh no! And so you can see here there's a value error of demo error. So, say you were tracing this application and trying to figure out what's going on. Well, with the Burr UI and that tracker, right, you get this this local UI that you can spin up to understand what's going on. So we can kind of see here that I created an application, and then we were slowly adding chat history of of content and responses as to kind of what happened. And we see here that we had a stack trace. Oh no! Burr in the UI we do also track some code, so you can kind of see the state. And so you see here that, hey, I put a value in. Okay. So one of the things that we can do is, if something broken I want to debug, we can actually go ahead and, fix this code and then restart from where we left off. So here I found this. I'm going to, redo that action. I'm going to rebuild the graph just because I need to pull in that updated action. And to be able to pick up from where I left off, I need to specify some identifiers. So in the case of this example, there is just one ID, so I'm just going to pull that. That's the kind of what we call the app ID. I am then going to replace that here, and then I'm going to resume, rehydrate the application with this updated graph from that particular point. So I can see here that the last thing was draw me a pen. And so we can then go back and walk this graph however we want, right? And so again, I can say I don't have to input anything because there was already input in terms of the prior history. So if we go back to this graph, so the Burr UI, we can see that, hey, where are we running the generate image step again? And this is still running. I think it usually takes about 10 seconds or so. Probably need to switch to another model. And it's running. Yep. And so we can see here it took about 9 seconds or so, and we succeeded. So we fixed our bug, and we're on our way with our agent. So and so this is where what the image was drawn. Oh, cool. Now, and so then we can draw. What is the capital of, right? And so we can resume, right? And so we see here that things kind of continue. Now, what if things went off the rails and instead you didn't have an error? Well, we can actually decide to go back at some particular point in time, right, and rerun things to see if we get the same response. And so we can see. So if I go back to this point in time, right, the prompt or input would be write hello world in Java. How do you do that with Burr? Well, again, all I need is this kind of ID. We can do that. I need a sequence ID. So here I'm going to go back to this particular step, and we put in 4. That means we're basically going to be at the end of this particular action. So where are we going to have the prompt? So 4 it is. I need to quit this one first, so I can execute this cell. So I've updated the cell. So now again, so we can actually create a new application and we're actually going to add 2 more arguments. And so we're going to fork from this application, from the sequence ID, and create a new application. So if I do that, we should have, and I check the fork state, we can kind of see here that I've gone back in time, and I see here that we have write hello world in Java being the place that we're in. And so if we go back to our agent demo, we can kind of see that now we have forked some state from this particular point. And so we have then a link here. We haven't actually run anything, so there's nothing in here, but just to show that. So then when I run this, I don't need to put in any input since there's already a prior prompt in there. We can kind of see we go back this kind of response. Now, this, you can see here, things are updated. So this feature, just briefly kind of tie things up. So Burr allows you to track your state. So it basically allows you to see at any point in time what your app did and kind of what the response was. It is very easy for you to fix a bug and pick up from where you left off, but then also fork state from a particular point in time. This is not only great for debugging purposes, but if you think about building, say, the left-hand side of ChatGPT, it gives you a lot of a data model that is very conducive to seeing history, but then also being able to replay or even restart bits from parts of it. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Do star us on GitHub if you like it. We do actually have a blog post on this, and I use a video on like how they use it for a robotics kind of context to help them easier debug and build their application. We do have a bunch of blogs on blog.dagworks.io around various things around agents, Burr, LLMs, and we have many more examples, especially around using state for test case creation or other kind of agent examples. Do follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter. Hope you enjoyed this introductory video. Thanks for listening.